Today we have with us Mr. Aamir Khan. I'm hoping that most of us are aware of SECP generally, but I would like to know more about it. So, can you please give us an overview about what SECP does?
First of all, thank you for having me over here. SECP is what you can call a truly integrated regulator. In most countries, you have multiple regulators covering the domain that we cover. We look at the company registration function, which is generally handled by a separate registrar in most jurisdictions in the world. We also look after the non-bank finance companies, the insurance sector, the provident fund and pension, which is independently managed by private sector. And we also look after the securities market and the futures market in Pakistan.
Can you tell कि इसका main objectives or goals होते क्या हैं? Especially for our economy?
The first and foremost would be effective enforcement and transparent enforcement and accountability. So people who operate in the financial services industry must adhere to the laws, the regulations, and the codes that we impose upon them. And because we also have some judicial responsibility, because we do pass orders, we do impose penalties, we do hear appeals against them. And we also have a appellate bench, which then eventually hears appeals against the orders of our officers. So there is a very heavy enforcement side and making sure that everybody remains within the boundaries or the four corners of the law. So that is the principal concern with any regulator that is there. But we also, in a developing economy, in an economy which is trying to excel and get ahead, there is a role of the regulator to also try and develop the markets. So I think market development is another area that we look after. I also feel that in the last few years, we have also assumed the role of trying to promote entrepreneurship, trying to promote startups, trying to promote innovation in the financial services industry, because we have a very big youth bulge. And to actually create opportunities for them, it's very important that we provide the space and the opportunity for them to venture into that area. And then I think ease of doing business and promoting competition, having a very wide supply of investment products, a very large number of investor base, number of new issues and issuers that come to the market. So to creating a vibrant market which runs efficiently, smoothly, and without any systemic risk in it. So that is also very important. And finally, something I think which we have been focusing on is also our internal governance and our internal transformation over the last few years.
You just mentioned youth and startups as well. तो आई थिंक आपको अंदाज़ा होगा कि ना टेक्नोलॉजीज जो हैं वो एज टाइम इज़ प्रोग्रेसिंग वो रैपिडली चेंज हो रही हैं. डू यू थिंक कि SECP जो है वो उसको अकोमोडेट कर रहा है?
I think one of the things that we realized, that all of the things that I talked about, whether it was enforcement, whether it was in terms of our function market development, whether it was creating competitive and efficient and very vibrant markets, or whether it was actually trying to empower the youth and encourage innovation. There are a few enablers that you need to actually make progress on things like that. And I think the most principal among them was technology. The other one being a very robust and very efficient and effective dialogue with the stakeholders, that people that we regulate, people who get impacted by our regulated industries, and all others who are interested in this, whoever those stakeholders are. What we did was 3 years back, we launched a program which was called LEAP as an acronym, and Leading Efficiency Through Automated Prowess was what the program was. And it had 4 cornerstones. One of the cornerstones was to actually launch a secure transaction registry, which you talked about in your opening comments. The second was basically trying to actually build a new registry. So we had a visionary chairman back in 2008 who digitalized the entire registry, Mr. Raziuddin, and he actually started that journey. But I think over the last 14, 15 years, there was the need to launch a new registry. So second part was that, which is already under implementation at this point in time, and we expect to complete that next year. The secure transaction registry was completed in 2020. The third part of this was to actually transform our entire internal workflow from a manual to a digital. And that process also will start sometime in the first or second quarter of next year, depending upon how things proceed. And the final and the fourth would be the introduction of extensible business reporting language, or XBRL as it is commonly known, for financial reporting locally. So that was our own internal governance. But then we also launched a sandbox, which allows people to bring ideas to us, youngsters mostly, but tech-savvy people who bring those ideas to us and create business cases where they want to move ahead, where regulations don't exist. So rather than trying to first make the regulations, we put the tests of technology-based companies ahead and allowed them to come up with that. So we've completed 2 cohorts. We are in the 3rd cohort, and there are many different technologies that have come to the fore. It has been a great learning experience, even for us as a regulator, and it has been a great learning experience for some of the people who use these technologies to learn how regulators work and how to work with regulators on developing new concepts and ideas. And finally, I would just say that it also made us realize that if we want to create the kind of market vibrancy and efficiency, we definitely need to embrace technology in a very holistic and broad-based manner. And I think we have made significant progress. We have created digital enabling platforms. We have created licensing regimes that look at digitalized models. And also, I think we've identified some of the legislative changes that need to be made.
तो क्या कभी कोई ऐसा होता है जैसे ना रजिस्ट करते हो कि यार यंग लोगों को सामने आना हो, तो एक जनरली आता है थोड़ा सा वो. सो हाउ डू यू नेविगेट दैट कि ना दोनों जो हैं, यंग एंड द सीनियर पीपल, बिकॉज ऑफ द एक्सपीरियंस, आर एबल टू वर्क टुगेदर?
We have tried to focus on empowering the younger lot. So 2-3 things that we've done. One was the introduction of the Hawks training program, through which we have inducted about 50 plus fresh graduates from all over the country. So for example, and 50% of them are, by the way, females of these 50. And some of these young females have traveled from interior Balochistan to come to Islamabad and start a career, some from interior Sindh, some from Istor in the northern areas. So there's some from Azad Kashmir. So there's a very good representation from across the country of these youth that have come in. And also what this has done is that this was done with an aim to actually keep the average age of the organization also in mind, which we have maintained at below 50 for the last 3 years. And simultaneously, what we tried to do was that we increased the population of under 35 from 28% 3 years ago to 35% today. And we also empowered women in the process. So what we have done is that the total female population has moved from about 15 to 20% in these 3 years. And females in position of authority or responsibility has increased from 16 to about 27%. So all these things were done to actually incorporate this. Plus, we do a lot of project-based LEAP project that I talked about. It was envisaged by a group whose average age was below 35, that group. So we routinely give out assignments and exercises and policy challenges to our youngsters, who then come up with a solution or a proposal, which is then refined and moves on. Because it's very critical from a long-term sustainability standpoint that people who are under the age of 35 play a critical role in the decision making for future.
तकरीबन जो कंपनीज थी, रजिस्टर्ड कॉर्पोरेशंस जो हैं, दे जंप फ्रॉम 90,000 to 173,000, ऑलमोस्ट डबल. ठीक है. एंड वी नीड टू कीप इन माइंड कि दिस इज ड्यूरिंग द पेंडेमिक. ठीक है. So can you tell me how were you able to achieve this, and what were the difficulties, and how did you manage this?
There were certain things that were done in the last 3 years, but there was a lot of good work that was done before as well. And as a result of that, I think the last 2 years were quite exceptional, because 30% of the total companies that we have in the country were formed in the last year, and 40% in the last 3 years. So you're right that there has been a massive jump. I think one of the things was digitalization. As I said, that when at the very beginning, we realized that technology is a great enabler. So what we did was we figured out how many. So the model traditionally that we had for opening of the companies was the CRO-led model, or the corporate registration office model. So we introduced digital certificates. People didn't have to come to get their certificates. We digitalized the certified true copies. We created portals. We integrated other government departments. So right now, we are targeting to have 35 government departments with whom registration will automatically take place. We already have FBR, Employee Old Age Benefit Insurance, SECI, which is a Sindh government agency, PASI, which is a Punjab government agency, and a host of others that when somebody registers a company with us, it automatically gets registered over there. So the ease of doing that was provided, the digitalization, and then on top of it, what we did in the last 2 years, I think, which has been phenomenal, is that we became the first organization to actually offer a WhatsApp service. And this year we actually built it up, and we offered a WeChat service for Chinese investors as well. We also, so WhatsApp, just to share some figures, I think in the last year or so, we had 20,000 plus queries on the WhatsApp, and we have a fully functioning team that tries to address them within 24 hours and turn around. The satisfaction rate, because we track it, is about 89% at the moment of that service. So that was another area which I think helped, because people could actually just WhatsApp and get the answer, rather than having to physically come to an office and then trying and setting up a company.
जैसे जो आप लोग की वेबसाइट पे SARA जो है, क्या वो भी का इसी का एक वो है, एक्सटेंशन है?
SARA is an initiative that goes beyond this. It's an artificial intelligence enabled chatbot. This will be a service which will be available 24/7. It will be available 365 days a year. You won't have to dial a call. You won't have to make a WhatsApp message. You can just come to our website, type the question, and SARA will be able to help you.
जब भी हम ऑनलाइन प्लेटफॉर्म्स की बात करते हैं, वी ऑफन टॉक अबाउट हाउ देयर इज अ रिस्क ऑफ फ्रॉड विद देम एज वेल. सो कैन यू टेल मी कि हाउ डू यू मेक श्योर कि ना वो चीज़ जो है वो लाइक हाउ डू नेविगेट दैट, बिकॉज फ्रॉड इज समथिंग जो कि इज समथिंग व्हिच बॉदर्स ऑल ऑफ अस, एंड ऑनलाइन से हमें जनरली एक जनरल एक स्केप्टिसिज्म होता है लोगों को. So how do you navigate that?
My personal views on this matter is that if you make the regulated spaces very hard to crack, अगर आप लोगों के लिए बहुत मुश्किल बना देंगे एक चीज़ का लाइसेंस लेना, या अगर आप इन्वेस्टर के लिए बहुत मुश्किल बना देंगे एक पर्टिकुलर टाइप ऑफ इन्वेस्टमेंट, तो फिर I often say that regulatory frameworks that are too rigid, that are too जैसे बोलिए judgmental, or that are too fixated on controlling every facet, or basically inflexible regulatory regimes, they are the ideal breeding grounds of fraud. So fraud key happening is always possible on a regulated platform or spectrum, but a much bigger fraud propensity exists if you do not allow people to trade and to have these platforms, because there will be platforms that will be available globally, and millennials or younger people will always be attracted towards them. So the critical thing is that you provide people the same kind of, as far as possible, within the realms of reasonableness, and obviously within the confines of the law, to have facilities available. So that is the first point that I wanted to make. The second thing is, obviously we have a very robust supervision regime. We have a supervision division. We have a team inside our supervision division which constantly monitors what is happening on platforms, what kind of advertisements are being made, what kind of enticements are there. So they review them, and if they find something is fraudulent, they immediately escalate it. If we need to go to the regulator for shutting down those websites, we do that. If it's something more serious and it requires legal action, we can always reach out to a law enforcement agency, and we do those things. But the solution is to not embrace the change. The solution is to make sure that it works efficiently and effectively in the interest of the public who are investing. But that option cannot be taken away from them from the regulated space, because the unregulated space will then encroach the territory if you try to stifle the regulated approach.
अभी रिसेंटली जो SECP ने जो है वो कॉन्सेप्ट पेपर्स वगैरह इशू किए थे, ठीक है, एंड आपका जो था वो ESG पे था, विच मीन्स इन्वायरमेंटल, सोशल एंड गवर्नेंस. So I just want to ask, how SECP itself complying with it? And secondly, your major, what will it achieve in the future?
Now that's a very interesting question, and I agree. I mean, we generally expect people to finalize their financial statements within 4 months, and we should expect the same from ourselves. So I think there is a lot of focus inside SECP on our internal governance in the last few years, and also we have made significant tangible progress. We've gone through a real alignment of our structure. Even we used to be a sector-based regulator. We have moved in the last 3 years to a more functional-based regulator. And I think in terms of sustainability and governance, it is very critical, because if any organization has to be vibrant and has to be effective in achieving outcomes, which we again take pride in, that we are an organization which is focused on outcomes and not just work activity. And we track the outcomes as well of whatever we do through a multitude of means. It is very critical that we are ourselves operating in a very high standard of with a very high standard of governance, and also keep an eye on sustainability. So some of the things that I talked earlier about gender mix, about gender empowerment. I mean, I'll also say diversity is not just about gender. It's much more broad based. So for example, our specially abled people composition in our team went from 1% to 2%. People from Balochistan went up from 4 to 6% during this period. In terms of age, I explained how the diversity has changed. Similarly, from a female perspective, there is significant participation. Also, in terms of qualifications, and there are a lot more chartered accountants that work for us today. There are a lot more litigators who work for us today, because as a regulator, it is critical for us to also have the litigation teeth if it is needed, when it is needed. So those are the areas where there has been a lot of progress, and I think I'm not really going too much into the philosophical side of ESG, but more on the governance side, where we have made very transformational progress in the last 3 years.
ओके, क्योंकि आपने ये बात की जेंडर पैरिटी की, ठीक है? तो रिसेंटली जो है एक जो इंट्रोड्यूस हुआ था कि जो जितनी भी लिस्टेड कंपनीज़ हैं, दे शुड हैव एटलीस्ट वन वुमन डायरेक्टर ऑन देयर बोर्ड। तो उससे जो है डेमोग्राफिकली क्या फ़र्क पड़ा है? एंड हाउ डू यू थिंक दैट्स हेल्पिंग overcoming the gender disparity we normally have?
I have found that younger people feel more strongly about diversity, about gender empowerment, about governance, about sustainability, about environment. And it is important to for everybody in all organizations. And I was speaking at an ICAP event a few weeks back, where I said the same thing, that it's critical that we involve our youth in decision making. And a lot of organizations have very rigid hierarchical structures, where youth's voice does not go to the top, or the female's voice does not go to the top, or far-flung area's voice does not go to the top of the management in any organization. We are as an organization trying to improve this, and I think that's more and more of it is needed. The second thing I think is also the culture, which is based on risk taking and innovation. That also needs to be encouraged, and it will only we will be able to make significant delta or change in terms of empowerment and diversity and female empowerment, if we try to take this as a holistic thing, rather than just focusing on a box ticking exercise. And it requires commitment from leadership at every level.
What would you like to say to the youth, because you are working with them very closely now? So what would you like to tell them about coming into this zone, and especially कि जैसे आपने बात की, they're very passionate about subjects जो कि पहले इतने seriously नहीं लिए जाते थे. So what is your message to them?
I think one thing that I always recommend to corporate leaders is try to spend more time listening, especially to youth and younger people, rather than trying to give them a bhashan, for the lack of a better word. So, but since you asked me to give a bit of a bhashan, so I will try my best. एक तो ये चीज़ I think they need to take what is there if it is not offered, and by this I do not mean that you start some kind of a corporate revolution inside the organization that you work for. You work within the systems of that organization, but make your voice heard, and be prepared to back up what you say with hard facts and with thought leadership, and look at yourselves as leaders, as thought leaders. I mean, you might be in the lower echelons of hierarchy, but you need to nobody is stopping you from assuming the role of thought leadership. The more prepared you are, the better you will be. Instagram, Netflix is not going to do it for you. It requires hard labor, and that's my advice to a lot of younger people, that perhaps some old-fashioned research and reading can always help you get that thought leadership position that you deserve. The second thing I would just say from a career perspective is that the three things to making it big. One, always have very high ambitions, as high as you can think. There's no limits to dreaming what you want. Dream as big as you want, you must. And then have self-belief that whatever you're dreaming, you'll achieve it. Because unless you have that belief in your own powers to get there, you won't be. And these two are very important, but something that generally accompanies these is arrogance, which you must shun. And it is critical that humility becomes a part of your demeanor and your practice. And as chairman SECP, I would not be doing service to my role if I don't overemphasize the importance of saving from a very earlier age. And I would just say that, yeah, that new dress, that food joint that offers a special kind of burger is great, but saving also is very important, because real empowerment comes from financial freedom. And as you grow in years, you'll realize that it is important to have saved up for that. And I would just narrate some figures, and I'll let the youngsters think about it. If you invest 100 rupees today, and there's a 10% fixed return on it, it would compound. 100 rupees today would compound to 3,000 rupees 30 times in a 35-year period at 10%. At 15%, this would compound to 13,000 rupees. At 20%, which could potentially be the returns in markets today over a long-term period, it would translate into 60,000 rupees. If you save 100 rupees every day, you'll be getting 60,000 rupees back in 35 years, hopefully, with a little bit of luck. It's critical. Please start saving now.
So I think we're glad that we have sales going on right now. So, we can probably do a little bit of saving through that as well. But my last question would be, in your, as a chairperson of SECP, जो आपका remainder tenure रह गया है, can you just share a bit of overarching goals that you have?
I think one thing which is very close to my heart, which we have worked on, is the LEAP project. So I would like that it concludes effectively, and we're able to transform our organization into a paperless organization. Why I say that is because actually in the last 3 years, our incorporation has gone up 49%, as you pointed out, but our paper usage, despite that 49% jump and a much bigger expanse in our activities, our paper usage has gone down 36%. Last year alone, that translated into saving 37 trees from being cut down and converted into paper. So I think it's very important that we transform into a paperless organization. And then, as you correctly said, that we can preach to others, but if we don't practice it ourselves, there's a disconnect. And I would love to be able to preach to all the companies. Just imagine if we could multiply this tree saving or this paper saving to the entire corporate sector, the 180,000 companies and the businesses that operate under our regulated realm, what can be the environmental savings from that? So that, I think, Project LEAP is very, very close to my heart. The second thing is user experience. We need to give top-notch user experience to those who come to our institution. They should not feel that they are dealing with an organization that is anything but public service, and very, very supportive kind of environment. And the third thing, I think, which is close to my heart, is continue the journey of digitalization education and innovation, promoting startups, and encouraging youth to play a bigger and bigger role in this journey. So those would be the three top things for me.
Thank you so much for this engaging discussion, and I hope that SECP becomes even more accessible for all of us. And I wish you the best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you very much, madam. Thank you.